Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om and good evening from Niagara Falls. I was recently in Vancouver, where we had a mobile Jnana Yajna. The first evening of our Jnana Yajna, the theme was making sense of stress. The second evening was how to transform the mundane to meaningful. Third day was 3 practices for peace. And the fourth day, and the last day, was how to understand esteem and ego. If one thinks deeply about the theme of each evening, it's actually the journey of a seeker. Making sense of stress is indicative that we need some space in here to think, and maybe the better word is we need some time to think. Because if there's no time, you can't think. When I start to think, I come to be honest that some of what I do is mundane and not meaningful. So what do? I have to start to practice bringing peace into what is mundane to make that meaningful. And finally, how to understand esteem and ego, because as I'm practicing, I may develop this ego that, look, I'm practicing. Or I have this Shastra Vasana that I study, but I don't follow. So a journey from start to finish. Our Bhagavad Gita course is this opportunity to think. When all of us have so many buts and busynesses in our lives, this is the opportunity to think. It is only through thinking that we can transcend thoughts. You cannot transcend thoughts without thinking. Chapter 15. To understand chapter 15, I want you to visualize a reverse bell curve. A typical bell curve goes like this. I want you to imagine the reverse, or the opposite, where it dips. And this plane is reality, or independent joy. We begin here. And then we forget and become extrovert. But then we remember and follow and come back to independent joy. This is what chapter 15 is sharing in a very simple way, to remember and follow. And bringing some scriptural references to this, the remembering here is Viveka. You remember what is important. You don't remember what's not important. Viveka is that which is important, a priority. And if Viveka is strong, naturally there will be Vairagya. That is letting go of what's not important because I'm holding on, I'm following what is important. When Hanumanji meets Vibhishana and they have this beautiful dialogue, so deep, a Ramayana, you can just go deeper and deeper and deeper into this. When Hanumanji meets Vibhishana, he says, I've seen my father but not my mother. Help me see my mother. Vibhishana says, I've seen my mother but not my father. Help me meet my father. And Hanumanji says, you are remembering your mother, but what are you doing for her? She's in Lanka, you're in Lanka. What have you done to help Mother Sita? And that really shakes him out of his complacency, that immediately he directs Hanumanji to where Mother Sita is. That remembering is not enough. You have to follow what you're remembering. Philosophizing is not enough. You have to practice what one is philosophizing. This is all shared in chapter 15. And in the reading, there's a beautiful episode that Guruji, Swami Tejamayana, the highlights, where some people are speaking poorly of Swami Ramatirtha. And he says, it doesn't matter. My friends are the earth and water and fire and air and space and God. See, he remembers and actually treats the earth as his friend, and water and fire and air and space. We keep studying the elements through the Foundation Vedanta course, Advanced Vedanta course, Bhagavad Gita course. But when someone criticizes us, totally shaken, no? That's what separates Swami Ramatirtha from me. He remembers and follows. We continue to chapter 16 and some introduction to where chapter 16 fits in our study. Chapter 1 of Srimad Bhagavad Gita is the introduction. Yes, we studied this many times. Chapter 2 is the table of contents. It's a big chapter sharing. This is all we're going to study. Chapter 3 through 14 is the contents. 3 through 14. Chapter 15 is a summary. As I told you, it's a journey from Brahman to bondage and back. Chapter 16 and 17 are known as appendices. The plural of appendix is appendices, right? Oh, by accident I actually got something right when it comes to language. These are the appendices that take certain subjects from what we've studied and elaborates on this, magnifies this. And finally, chapter 18 will be the greatest summary that takes the introduction, table of contents, content, summary, appendices into account. Again, trying to understand where 16 fits into our study. What is happening with Prince Arjuna and us, as we're introduced to Bhagavad Gita, is we are engaged in sakama karma, but that really means sakama drishti. We have a vision of selfishness. I don't know dharma, I don't know pandava, I only know swartha. The only artha is what's good for me. Bhagavan comes onto the scene and says, think. So he takes him from sakama to nishkama. That is nishkama drishti, where I'm not just thinking about oneself, but others. And the more the others are, the loftier my drishti is. And when one engages in this nishkama karma sufficiently, what this kicks into is shuddhi. Shuddhi of the chitta. The mind and memory, the intellect and ego, that's what's trapping me in the bottom of this bell curve. But as I purify this, which really means I'm weakening this, I start to rise again. It's like letting go of a weight. And when you can let go of that weight fully, this comes with pramana, jnana pramana. When one's shastra, Sadguru says, you have no weight, na bandha. Then you respond by saying, na muktihi. There is no bondage, and so there is no freedom. That is called tyaga. Sakama, nishkama, shuddhi, pramana, tyaga. Bhagavad Gita is teaching us yoga. And yoga means self-development. Another way to understand yoga is virtue development. Another way to understand this is chitta shuddhi. That's what Bhagavad Gita teaches. And so chapter 16 has a focus on the Daivi Sambatti. Now, if you've heard this word before, Sambatti, what scripture? Vivekji. the Shat Sampatti, the 6 wealths. These are the inner wealths, like Shama and Dhamma, cool mind, collected senses. Why is there an appendix or a whole chapter on the qualities that are divine? If you go back to chapter 15, the last shloka I had mentioned, our responsibility is to become anagha, to become pure. And then Shastra and Sadguru will come and make us bharata, will make us filled or complete. Our responsibility is not to make ourselves complete, just pure. And Bhagavan Krishna is a master teacher in this chapter, where he first talks about the Devi Sampatti, the inner divine wealths, and then the Asurik Sampatti. And he doesn't need to describe this too much because we know this already. He only attaches words to what we're experiencing. But a master teacher, Bhagavan Krishna. We begin by highlighting Shloka 1. This is part of the Devi Sampatti, the divine inner wealth. What makes one a Deva, makes one light. Abhayam sattva samshuddhihi jnana yoga vyavastitihi danam damascha yajnascha swadhyayastapa arjavam. This is shloka 1. Abhayam, where there is no fear. And this is the best word to start a great chapter, is abhaya. So to be fearless. But the question is how? How does one become fearless? And there's a whole plan on becoming fearless. Here are some of the ways for us to become fearless. Sattva samshuddhihi means to have a pure heart. A pure heart is one that is gentle. Living is rough enough. We don't have to make living more rough. Jnana yoga vyavastitihi, which means one is steady and sincere when it comes to the vision of knowledge. Having a vision filled with knowledge, that they don't treat the study and following of knowledge as conditioned by space, time, and matter. Vyavastitihi means they are practicing this perpetually. While they're driving, while they're living, while they're bathing, while they're getting dirty, and on and on and on. Bhagavan comes to more specifics. They engage in dana. Dana means they're generous. There's generosity. In our Ramayana class, we had studied a word that's the opposite of dana. Our Ramayana students, do you remember? Makki choose. All of our Hindi speakers, have you heard of makki choose before? I had only heard that through Swami Tejamayana, and it's so aptly descriptive of someone who is the opposite of generous. So makki means fly. Imagine a fly lands on a watermelon or in a glass of milk, and so it's taken some of that fruit or that milk. So you squeeze that fly for that part of that fruit or that milk that you won't even let that go. Makki choose. So the next time you want to insult someone, you tell them, hey, makki choose. That's like a sattvic way of insulting someone, right? We can be very vicious and vulgar. This is more fun and accurate. So dana is generous. Let that fly have part of this fruit and milk. Dhamma. Dhamma is to have collected senses. One has collected senses when their purpose is clear. Yajna means dedication. They're dedicated to dharma, to Pandava. They're dedicated in a higher way, so they're sacrificing the lower. Swadhyaya. This is a lovely word. Adhyaya means chapter, to study. Swa, oneself. Even people who write memoirs or autobiographies, they have to think lots about their life, no? In some of our retreats, I encourage people to write their own eulogy. You all know what a eulogy is. What's read about you at a funeral. But what's fascinating about this is that you didn't write it, and everyone there, they have to be positive, right? Especially the person reading. They can't go up there and say, this person was a loser. This person was maki choose. they can't say that in front of everyone. So imagine you have to write your own eulogy in a most accurate way. That requires swadhyaya. Tapa means to burn down one's comfort zone. And if there's no tapa, then there is pata, which means to fall. You fall into complacency. And finally, who is Bhagavan Krishna teaching? Us, but in this context, Arjuna. And he says, Arjava. How beautifully Bhagavan includes Arjuna as, you are virtuous by name, and I know you are virtuous by form, which is why I'm not wasting my time on you. We're on chapter 16 now. Arjava means to be simple, straightforward. Arjava means someone who doesn't know how to use technology. At least I justify that in my head as being Arjava. And Bhagavan completes this Devi Sampatti by saying, Na ati maneta. Abhaya is the first. Na ati maneta is the last. Maneta means ego. Ati maneta, very egotistical. Na, which means one is very humble. I've obviously listened to Swami Tejamananda speak a whole lot. And if there's any virtue that he emphasizes the most, it is humility. The beauty of virtues is that if you are committed to one virtue, the rest come. And if one is committed to this virtue, that is humility, they come faster. Humility. And after completing these thoughts on Devi Sampatti, this divine inner wealth, Bhagavan brings out the Asurik Sampatti. And he calls that wealth too. These vices that others are filled with, not us, others are filled with. Asurik Sampatti. I recently spoke at the Veterans Affairs Hospital in Seattle on what is Sanatana Dharma's views on death and grief and coping. And in the poster they wrote Hindu or Hinduism, and I began my thoughts saying that the word Hindu is not even in the Veda. That the right understanding is Sanatana Dharma. And in Sanatana Dharma, by being virtuous, one becomes independently joyous. And on and on and on. And there was chaplains of various faiths that were there. And I reference one portion of the Bible where what is shared, before a rich man can enter into the kingdom of God, a camel can enter through an eye of a needle. Before a rich man can go into the kingdom of God, a camel can fit through the eye of a needle. And if you interpret this literally, both are impossible. And how is a camel supposed to fit through the eye of a needle? That rich man is not to be interpreted as outer richness, but one who's rich in vices. In Vedanta, we would say vasanas. When one is rich in vasanas, they can never reach swarga. There's too much weight. So that's why this is called sampatti. Even vices, people are wealthy in vices, like Ravana, no? Though his brother Kumbhakarna was lazy, and his brother, we'll leave Vibhishna out, but his brother was lazy, Ravana was also lazy. Here Bhagavan separates asuras and rakshasas. This is an important delineation. An asura uses resources and time and effort for their own gain. Resources, time, and effort for their own gain. A Rakshasa uses resources, time, and effort for others' loss. So an Asura, I'm lifting myself up and I don't care about you. A Rakshasa, I don't even care if I get lifted up, but I'm going to bring you down. And if I can loosely apply worldly terms to this, an Asura is like capitalism. And a Rakshasa is like terrorism. True? The rich keep getting richer. The good schools keep becoming gooder. And the terrorist doesn't care about themselves either. They just want other people to be harmed. And Bhagavan completes this part of the Asurik Sampatti, and I know you're all waiting. But tell us, what are some of these vices? That will come later. That will be your week-long assignment, rather than focusing some minutes on this. Bhagavan says, the way that one thinks today, they will be there tomorrow. Yatha drishti tata srishti. That if I am divine today, I will rise to Swarga. And you can say rise to Swarga, but better is you deepen to the self. And someone who is asurik, there's no light. They're more extrovert. So tomorrow they go to hell, which means they move away from their nature. Today makes tomorrow. This was 16.1 to 16.4. We now shift to 16.5 to 16.9, which completes this chapter. All karma and karma phala is anitya. Actions are limited, and any combination of actions will also create fruits that are limited. True? If actions are limited, naturally their results are going to be limited. If the cause is limited, how can the effect be limitless? Actions and results are limited. And Bhagavan is sharing here that if you go to Swarga, if you go to Naraka, you will come back. You will come back to being a mixture of divine or virtuous and vicious. Heaven and hell are a form of rehabilitation. Religion is actually a form of rehabilitation. The person who's gone to heaven, tomorrow there's more pleasure, possession, position, they will go through that and realize, now what? And they'll come back to our embodiment, and hopefully they will think to transcend thoughts. And the person who goes to hell, they're people who are in pain, physically, mentally, intellectually. They too will say, when will this end? They'll come back to our plane, and then they will think, I don't want to go back there. I want that which is nitya, the best investment, that which will last forever. And so I'd like to highlight the next shloka of chapter 16. This is a most popular shloka. We've referenced this shloka many times. Trividam narakasyedam dvaram nashanam atmanaha kama krodastatha lobaha tasmad etatrayam tyajet. Bhagavan says, Trividam narakasya idam. These are the three of hell. What are these related to hell? Dvaram, the gates to hell. Nashanam atmanaha. These are destructive of the Atman, that is peace. What are these gates to hell? Kamaha, desire. Naturally, where there's desire, there's going to be krodaha, anger. Tataha, and if there's not anger, what will come? Lobaha, or greed. Tasmad etat. Therefore, these etatrayam, these three should be let go of. Tyajet. We have to dispel these. How to rehabilitate ourselves if we're going to hell or if we're in hell? How do we rehabilitate ourselves? Swami Tejamananda shares in this chapter, approaching this from a jnana perspective, from a knowledge orientation, one should engage in dhamma, daya, and dana. Dhamma, we had mentioned, is keeping the senses collected. Daya means to be empathetic, and dana means generous. Dhamma, daya, dana helps us to come out of these gates of hell, or to not to go into them. From a bhakti orientation, it is prarthana. Pray to Bhagavan that you see these gates and you turn back. That Bhagavan stands in front of these gates and ensures you don't go through them. From a karma orientation, it is to follow dharma. When one is following their responsibilities, they don't let that mind drift into desires. A responsible person doesn't give in to anger because it makes them irresponsible. And they're not greedy because they're not looking around. They're focused on their own grass. From a dhyana level, this is more subtle. It is to be a sakshi of one's vrittis. Desire, anger, and greed are just thoughts. When you're asleep, you don't have desire, anger, or greed. So be more observant. Let us not be possessive of the thoughts. Buddhihi karma anusarini. There's a beautiful term that says one's buddhihi, or one's ideal, anusarini, follows one's actions. Which means that I can philosophize a lot, but if my actions are base, that really means my philosophy is base. Guruji uses the word ideal, that instead of lifting our actions to our ideals, what do? We pull our ideals to our actions. Someone who is on their way to hell or in hell is one who justifies their desire, their anger, their greed. Chapter 16 is trying to bring to our attention that the equipment we have, the body, mind, intellect, the field, the articles, beings, and circumstances around us, the intersection of this is designed for us to evolve. The evolution of the body is complete. Now the evolution of the mind, memory, intellect, ego, the antakarana, we have to focus on that. And full evolution is chitta shuddhihi, where the mind is no longer the mind. Knowledge comes in and breaks the ego. Oh.